Let's plant some lettuce together. We're going to talk about two ways today. We're going to start inside and then we'll move outside and see how that's different. And this might be a little bit different than some things you've seen before, starting with the trays. So this is what I use, and it's obviously not one of those cell trays. It is a meal prep tray, super easy to clean and has been a great size to work with. And we're going to start today with some mycorrhizal fungi. So I start each of my trays this way. I just sprinkle on, it's not even a teaspoon that I'm going to need, and I just sprinkle it on the bottom of the tray because mycorrhizal fungi has a beneficial relationship with the roots of our plants. Kind of acts as a sponge, almost like an extra root system for the plants. So the fungi benefit the plants and vice versa. So I start that way. So it's not fertilizer, it's fungi. And then we're going to start making soil blocks. And so I had stayed away from soil blocks for the first few years that I was seeding things. I've always had my eye on them, but it sounded like you had to have this super fancy soil mixture, and the professional metal soil blockers were on the pricey side for me, not knowing if things were going to work or not. But this is a Fiskars soil block maker, and I have I have really had fun using it. So it makes 4 blocks at a time, and you can see I'm just filling it up and kind of pressing things in. And I don't need any special soil mix. This is just coco coir. So coco coir starts as a brick and then you rehydrate it. And so here's our first 4 already. Just pop them out. And there are the soil blocks. And I can fit 12 of these in the tray then. So back to filling this up with coco coir. So that's all it is. I don't have anything else mixed in here. It's just the brick of coir, and then it gets rehydrated. And in doing that, it makes things just about the perfect moisture level also, where I have things just about right as far as wetness, to be able to plant my seeds and get them to germinate well. Not too dry, not too wet, all of that balance thing happening. And so it doesn't have any fertilizer in it. So that does mean once my seedlings are a couple weeks old, I do fertilize with a liquid fertilizer. Just a fish and kelp is usually what I use. So it is natural. I use something that is listed for organics. And here we go already with this next set. Pop it out and set them over. So I will have to add fertilizer later, but for right now, it's just coco coir, and it's kind of like making sandcastles. So this is, in fact, this is my favorite way to end the day. I turn on a podcast or an audiobook, so it's great, like no screen time at the end of the day. And it's like a 15-minute task. So I'll clean up the kitchen for the evening and then plant a set of seeds, and it's become part of my lifestyle then. And it's not something that I have to try and just get all of these seeds out all at once just in April and that's it. It's something that I'm actually planting year round, especially if you've watched the channel at all and seen my mini greenhouses. I get to have fresh greens even throughout the winter, which means I'm using this all fall, all winter. This is not just a spring task to do. So get this last set moved over. So 12 blocks, 4 in each set. That means I only have to do this 3 times and we're ready to plant. All right, so I have a tray of 12 blocks that we are ready to plant here. I need to clean up my hands just a minute so that I can handle the seeds, and I'll be right back with you. And we are going to be planting a lettuce called Lunix today. I actually already have a tray of these guys ready to go, and they've been ready for a little bit, but we've been having this like false spring here, and then it just dropped back down to 20 degrees again. So I knew that was coming, and I didn't want to send them outside to shock them that much as well as they've been doing so far. But this is actually, they're green right now, but it is actually a red lettuce. Once the cooler temperatures and the actual sunlight instead of just the grow lights start hitting it, it will start to turn red. And this is also a strategy for you. Lettuce has you can expect just a few weeks out of it before it's either ready to bolt, or in cooler temperatures it will hold on longer. But especially as we start moving into the warmer months, to keep a steady supply of lettuce, once one set is ready to go out, then it's a perfect time to go ahead and start more seeds, which is also another reason why it's helpful to know how to do this in the house and not just planting outside in the garden. So this is going to give us a steady supply all season, really all year, if you stick with me and do greenhouses as well. So we're going to get some lettuce planted. And lettuce seeds, they look a lot like grass seeds. So they're kind of on the small side, but they get planted at a 1/4 inch deep. And so that's another great thing about the soil block maker that I use. It puts these little 1/4 inch divots in the top. There are little divots there in the maker itself. So it puts actually a 1/4 inch hole to drop the seeds down in. And so that's what we're going to do. And this is a new fresh packet of seeds for 2026. And so I'm going to drop 2 seeds down into each one of those holes. Not just one, but 2, because it is they're seeds, they're living things. There's not going to be 100% germination. We're doing this for real. It's not a not a science experiment in a laboratory. So 100% germination, it's rare. You might get it for a tray, but it's not going to happen for every single one of your trays. So if I put 2 seeds per cell, then that pretty well guarantees me that I'm going to get a plant for each one of those blocks that we made. If I only did 1 per cell, then if something doesn't come up, I'm missing that opportunity and I can't get the time back. So I put 2, and if I have an older pack of seeds, I keep my seeds for a couple of years and still have good life out of a lot of the different kinds that I keep that way. And if I've got a pack that's a couple years old, I'll put probably 4 in each cell, because seeds will start to lose some of their viability the longer that they have been around. So drop in 2 per cell. And then the next thing we want to do is come through and just put a little bit of coco coir on top of each one and then tap it down. So You might have heard, if you've listened to any other seed starting advice, you might have heard that you want soil to soil contact. And that's true. What you're actually doing is it's actually seed to soil contact. We don't want any air pockets in there because we need to make sure that the seed stays completely moistened. Um, if it dried out, then that's where you're not going to get things germinating. So we want to make sure that it's actually the moisture that we're holding in. So soil to soil contact, yes, but you're actually holding the moisture right against the seed is what you're doing whenever you're doing that. So I'm just tapping that in on top of each one of those. And then I am not going to water these at all because I have plenty of moisture in my coco coir. So you might have been able to see just a little bit when I was making the soil blocks that there was maybe even a little bit of water just kind of trickling out. So this is plenty wet as it is. If you were using a cell tray and things were drier, then you might want to just kind of mist the top. You don't want to dump water on there where it's going to disturb your seeds that you just placed in there so carefully. So if you ever water from the top, you want to do more of like a mist. Really, for seeds, we want it to be bottom watering. And so I will use, in fact, I don't even use a watering can anymore with the fine spout. I just use a measuring cup because it's easier to sanitize once I've had my fertilizer mixture in there. And I will just water around each one of those blocks then, and it pours in around there just fine. And then things will soak up from the bottom. So this is ready to go. We're going to do one more thing, and that is put on a lid. So these meal prep trays come with lids. I just clamp down 3 corners and I leave the other one up for just a little bit of venting there. But will also save you a little bit of money because they will sell you giant humidity domes. You do not need to buy one of those. This is only going to stay on until your seedlings pop through, and then we're going to remove it because too much humidity actually invites disease. In fact, I've made you a seed starting course to share all of this and more with you, and we talk about in there that it's better to err on the side of dry with your seedlings. So unless you've got your furnace just cranked up, it will be like a week that these will be fine. In here, you're going to see some humidity collecting on the lid. And then what I do once I see those babies have started coming through, I'll wipe the inside of the lid and then just kind of prop it up for another day and then take it completely off. So we don't want things too wet. Is actually just as bad, if not worse, than too dry whenever you're starting seedlings. So that will get us started. And then I brought in with me, this is not actually lettuce, it's an Italian dandelion, but it starts kind of the same way. And so they were just about the right size to show you that the first 2 things that pop up are actually called cotyledons. They are the seed leaves, and then the true leaves will follow out of the center. So those first 2 seed leaves or cotyledons actually feed the plant for like the first week or 2. So I wanted to show you this size because whenever I water these the next time, that's whenever I'm going to put the fertilizer in, and start kind of on an every other week is whenever that I water with fertilizer then. And you can also see they're not in need of water just yet. I'm going to even let them get just a little bit drier, but you can see it's starting to get just a little bit lighter on the top. And that's what we want. We don't want to leave things drenched. So it will stay with the lid on. It's going to stay wet enough for starters, and then we'll move to this. So one other thing, the reason these are growing the way they are, I do have grow lights, and I had made a video, I'll make sure I link that, about what my grow light setup looks like. but you are going to want to have this in a well-lit location. Most likely a window is not going to be enough, so I'll make sure I link up what my grow light setup looks like, and you can try your own. And then we're ready to take a look at how planting outside is a little bit different. Oh, as we go outside, the coco coir is coming with us, and you'll see why. So the directions on a lettuce packet usually say to plant about 8 inches apart. When I head outside, I will plant at 4 inches apart to start with. And I just use my finger and make, remember that 1/4 inch divot that we planted into? I'm making kind of a 1/4 inch line there that we're going to plant the seeds in. And it's also noteworthy that there's naturally plenty of moisture in the soil right now. If it happened to be dry, a lot of times I'll go out and pre-moisten if it's a larger area, or I might even, that line that I just made, I'll take my watering can and actually dampen that line before I ever plant the seeds. And then I'm just sprinkling some seeds down each row and intentionally putting them fairly close together because we're going to have some leaf lettuce first, and then we can thin the plants out a little bit later to more of the spacing that we want. Then this is why the coco coir came outside with us. That is one of my tricks to help make sure that the little seeds are able to germinate. We've got to keep things damp whenever that they are outside. It's different than, so big difference from inside. Inside, we had plenty of moisture. Outside, with the wind, things dry pretty quickly. And so the coco coir really helps hold that moisture in, especially if you're dealing with um, some soil outside that's not quite ideal yet. The coco coir will keep things light and fluffy for the seeds to emerge and holds the moisture really well at the same time. So as well as things like lettuce, this is how I get my carrots to germinate pretty easily and effortlessly. It's just like that step we did inside with dropping the coco coir on top and then tapping it down. We're just doing the same thing right here. Then as things do start to dry out, the coco coir will lighten in color and help me monitor where I do need to come back out and water. So I don't have to water the whole garden, I just have to water where I've freshly seeded things. And lettuce is generally pretty quick. It should be just a few days that we have to do that monitoring before we start to see little babies coming up. So do you have any questions about starting lettuce, or do you have your own tip to share? Let us know in the comments. And then I made that seed starting course for you available on my website, theimaginegarden.com. So come on over and I'll see you there.